Sometimes weddings look so lovely on social media, like this one from August 22nd, 2015, with people wishing the bride and the bridegroom all the best and their happiest wishes. Mrs. Monique McKee. Wonderful wedding, such a beautiful wedding, one person wrote. Another person exclaimed, "Congrats to Dr. and Mrs. McKee. Wishing you many years of love and happiness." Sounds like an Al Green song, huh? But many times what we see on social media can differ wildly from what court documents show us if only we would take the time to dig deeper and verify what is true. Now, if that gorgeous bride looks familiar to you, there's a reason why. Before she was a Tepe, Monique was Mrs. McKee. Today is Wednesday, January 7th, as I'm filming this, and in the short time since the horrific deaths of Dr. Spencer Tepe and his wife, Monique Tepe, happened on December 30th in Columbus, Ohio, a lot of misinformation has been spread about Monique's ex-husband. And his name is already all over social media, with a lot of misinformation, unfortunately. Now, of course, all of us make mistakes. That's human. To err is human, to forgive is divine. But some folks are doing it intentionally. I just read one Facebook fake post where someone was claiming that the surviving 4-year-old, the Tepe's oldest daughter, beautiful little girl, they're already claiming, oh, she pointed to a picture of Monique's ex-husband and said, "That's him, that's the one who did it." Now, of course, the Columbus Division of Police has released nothing like this. No wonder everyone's searching for Monique's ex. And since his name is all over the place, I want to clear up what I actually found about their marriage and divorce from official court records. Since his name is already all over the place, Michael D. McKee, unfortunately there are a lot of men with that same name in Ohio. Some people are mistakenly conflating him with others with criminal records, whereas some people are intentionally creating these fake Facebook stories just to gain attention. Let me tell you, if you see a story like that on Facebook that is obviously fake, there's a way to report it as false information. Hopefully it'll make these people go away. It's already enough hurt and confusion and sadness with this case. They don't need to start creating fan fiction around what the 4-year-old allegedly said to police when no one knows that at this point. It's still under investigation. The culprit has not been found as far as we know at this point more than 1 week later. And some of these people on Facebook creating these crazy stories, they don't care but a hill of beans that a man's name might be dragged through the mud, slander, libel. Perhaps they don't care. I don't even know if they live in this country. They just want a hot story. Some people have just inadvertently mixed up Mike McKee with other men with the same name without comparing the birth dates or the addresses, ascribing crimes to him, to the real Dr. Mike McKee that the court doesn't even reflect. But by verifying the correct date of birth from Mike McKee, I was able to determine he's not the man with some long criminal history, nor is he the man who married another man shortly after divorcing Monique. And he doesn't live in Whitehall. Now, I received a 55-page document surrounding the entire divorce of Monique Tepe and Mike McKee. I want to put out verifiable facts, that's all we have right now, because this other kind of information or misinformation that some people have put out either mistakenly or intentionally could literally ruin a person's career and his life. So in an effort to clear up this confusion and to stop slander, I received from the court official documents via a public records request. Court documents from this file number, the case number 17-DR-1691. There's a PDF I received. It's 55 pages. If you want to download it, you can do it at the link below. I'm not going to put necessarily a ton of the document on the screen because I'm not going to dox anyone. But there are some interesting aspects to this divorce between Monique Frances Sabaturski, now known as Monique Tepe, and her former husband Michael David McKee. One of the first things that really stands out is that it was an extremely short marriage. Even though Monique and Michael can be seen in social media photos as far back as 2012, their friends were talking about going to the Nutcracker, they were in photos together, their marriage was really brief. And I haven't found any evidence like people are saying, Monique was with Spencer in one photo and her ex-husband in another photo, all hugged up together. People are taking certain photos without verifiable facts and just running with it. But the facts I was able to find via social media and court documents, they indeed married on August 22nd, 2015, and they separated just 7 months later, March 16th. So even though Monique and Mike had dated at least as far back as 2012, they apparently knew each other years before getting married that August 22nd, 2015 day. They were separated 7 months later, March 2016. We don't know why. They will provide a standard reason in this document. Monique filed for divorce. She had a lawyer. Her ex, Michael, he was pro se. He represented himself. The official divorce proceedings began May 2017. They were quickly finalized by June 2017, and we learned little snippets like Monique literally paid for her own rings. So there's an affidavit of property we'll go over. Monique listed her engagement rings, her wedding rings as separate property. It was not a marital asset. And when they're asking, well, why? She wrote, I paid for both the engagement ring, $2,500, and the wedding ring, $3,500. Wow, so she shelled out $6,000 for her own rings. And when we get into salaries, it's kind of surprising that the doctor's salary isn't as high as I thought it would be. Now, of course, this was a while ago. We are talking more than 10 years ago this marriage happened. So we might ascribe certain tendencies when we see a beautiful bride and we see, oh, Dr. McKee, and you see a gorgeous wedding ring, an engagement ring. We might quite assume, oh wow, she married a doctor, they're rich now, and he was able to get her these fabulous rings. Well, life can be different than what we imagine it to be. Monique even used a private judge for secrecy and speed to get this divorce done. Whatever happened, where they separated 7 months after marriage, Monique was done, she wanted it done quickly. So instead of waiting for the standard court docket, they hired this private judge. The case was referred to a Judge Donald A. Cox to oversee the final hearing. I didn't even know this could be done. I had to look it up. The motion states they hired him, quote, in order to conduct the hearing, quote, in a more private setting at a more convenient time. That's why the divorce was able to be finalized in just 6 weeks after their initial complaint was filed. So we're going to look at one curious entry too. It's this high interest debt repayment in their separation agreement. It's strangely specific and punitive, this financial clause. It says Monique had to pay Michael exactly $1,281.59 for reimbursement of miscellaneous debt. We don't know what it is. But he went on to say if she did not pay it back by July 1st, 2018, interest would accrue at a rate of 23%, which is pretty high. We also learned from this filing, this group of documents, that when they filed for divorce, they lived in totally different states. Monique was living in Westerville, Ohio. She worked for Nationwide. I brought that up in my previous video. I think the first one I did about the Tepes. I saw she worked for Nationwide. Even though people are saying she has a background in education, at some point, even Monique wrote in her filing she was working at Nationwide. Now, at the time of the filing, Michael was living in Roanoke, Virginia. He was working for this Caroline Clinic. And here's a big one. We'll go over this standard mutual restraining order. It's a standard mutual temporary restraining order issued upon filing. So it's pretty boilerplate in divorce cases, pretty standard, to prevent people from selling off their assets, and they don't want people to harass each other, don't interfere with each other, don't assault each other, don't do bodily harm while you're going through this divorce. People have turned this into, on social media, I see all the time, did you know Monique took out a restraining order on her ex? And they're running with it without just simply Googling what these terms could mean. We will also take a look at Monique's usage of her name. Now, Monique is referred to in this document by her maiden name, Monique Frances Sabaturski. So even though on social media it's like, congrats to Mrs. Monique McKee, in the court filings her name is not actually Monique McKee. She probably didn't even have time to change her name since they were married so briefly, separating 7 months after marriage. What egregious thing could have happened for them to separate so quickly? So we're going to review the highlights again. If you want to go over all the details, it's 55 pages worth. It's a lot. You can download it below. This document is a full packet from their 2017 divorce case file from this Court of Common Pleas, Domestic Relations Division in Ohio. Monique is the plaintiff. Michael is the defendant. I gave you the case number. There was an initial judge, Elizabeth Gill, but they transferred over to the private judge. One thing that's important is the separation agreement. I noted it said both parties have made full disclosure of their financial situation, and the parties waive any interest in the other party's retirement plans. So that's one important note also, because of all these rumors flying around. Again, I won't mention anything that I can't verify with court records or with police coming out and saying it. We have only seen at this point one video of a person of interest, not even a suspect, and I know people are running wild with who they think that pigeon-toed walker could be, whether it's a friend or a coworker. People are pointing fingers all over the place. There's nothing wrong with sleuthing, don't get me wrong. I know detectives have to examine every area, but it crosses a line to me in this situation when people begin putting outright falsehoods out there about a person like Monique's ex-husband. And let me tell you, there are some people who are not stable out there who will take it and run with it, try and track down her ex or something and believe the fake stuff they've seen on social media. Anyway, we're going to go through this briefly: their complaint for divorce, waiver of service, their income and expenses, how much they were making, real estate tied to the deal, all these cars, their estimated mortgage value, this address that's linked to Mike on Verona Trail as of 2017, and all their cars. A pretty asset-heavy marriage, but not, totally. They weren't balling out. Michael's employer listed back then, Monique's employer, the debts, and everything of this short-term marriage, which is important because Ohio treats short-term marriages differently in terms of dividing property and, of course, support. It's not like they were married 20 years. This will verify they didn't have any kids. They weren't married 20 years and he's paying her alimony or child support or anything like that. The waivers signed and all that kind of stuff. It's important to clear up fact from fiction. And now this report does not include any police reports, any claims of abuse, no criminal allegations. It is strictly a civil case, domestic relations, talking about divorce, property, financial disclosures, and that's it. So let's dig in, see what we can find. It opens up page 1. It's a clerk's notice of this hearing. The hearing was set for Thursday, June 15th, 2017. Early. This was before the Honorable Judge Elizabeth Gill. So this was something before the private judge took over. And we just see Monique, we see Michael's name. The complaint has not previously been found. We see handwriting. We see confidential disclosure of personal identifiers. And of course, they've redacted a lot. We're not going to see their social security numbers in here or things like that. But one thing we do see, which this was it for me, this was confirmation I had been waiting on from the court. We will see Michael David McKee's, I knew his address previously back then, but we will see his date of birth. And that's related to June 29th, which is not the date of birth of the other Michael D. McKee that people are confusing Monique's ex-husband with. That was it for me. In essence, it talks about Monique. She's the plaintiff. She was a resident of this county in Ohio for more than 90 days, and how she married Michael August 22nd, 2015. They have no children. No children, and Monique is not currently pregnant. So for all the rumors that, oh, could the 4-year-old child, could that have been Michael's child? And all these other rumors, was she pregnant after their divorce? Or I don't know. It doesn't seem like it pans out. They were living apart. Monique states that the parties are incompatible. That's pretty much it. There's one more description coming up. Monique is requesting an absolute decree of divorce from Mike, an equitable division of property and everything, whatever's just and equitable. So Mike acknowledges legal representation. He understands this woman represents Monique and not him. And he knows he has the right to retain his own attorney, but apparently he didn't. And it seems, for the most part, a pretty clear-cut, it wasn't this divorce that took years and going back and forth and battling over every toothpick. Which, I don't blame her. You want it clear cut and over with. That's how I wanted my divorce, years ago. So Michael just signed this waiver of service. He's like, okay, I'm over 18. I know what I'm doing. I found this part interesting. The affidavit of income and expenses. He worked at that Caroline clinic. And apparently after this point, from what I gather, Dr. Michael McKee graduated in 2020 from this Caroline clinic's general surgery residency program. So this wasn't until later. During his residency, he was noted for his work at the Caroline Roanoke Memorial Hospital. Supposedly, he's currently practicing as a vascular surgeon at a different cardiovascular institute. So take that with a grain of salt. That's not what's in the court document. The only thing in the court document is that Michael, he's the spouse. At this point, he worked at Caroline Clinic. So many times even AI, of course, and Google can be wrong because of fake news. Like if you Googled, oh, the Tepe's 4-year-old daughter, did she really, point to a photo of the ex-husband and, say he's the one? Well, Google at this point, as I'm recording, will tell you, yeah, that happened, only because some fake news site created that story. But back then, these court documents list his income as $49,000 for both 2014 and 2015, and by 2016, his income was $51,000. Now remember, this is the beginning of their marriage. They were young. He didn't have as much experience as he does now as a surgeon, So he hadn't even graduated, I guess, from that general surgery residency program. At that point, I'm sure he makes a lot more now, but his base yearly income was $51,000 back then. And I was surprised it was so low, but I was thinking, oh, they were young and just getting started basically in their careers, I'm sure. Now, Monique, for her affidavit of income and expenses, she again notes the date of the marriage, August 22nd, 2015, the date of separation, March 2016. So that's only 7 months, very, very, very short. Monique's employer is listed as Nationwide in Columbus. And so she's showing her income. For 2014, it was $32,000. For 2015, it was $35,000. For 2016, it was $41,000. And her base income was $50,000 because, unlike her husband, she was able to estimate overtime, commissions, and or bonuses. Estimated over the last 3 years, an average was $10,300. So she added that on to her base salary. So actually it was pretty equitable. They were both making back then, I'll just say around $50,000 per year. So it's not like one was making, $1 million and one making much less. So she signed all of that. Again, giving you the highlights. They talk about the present Fair market value of the home, nearly $220,000, only $4,500 in equity, probably because it was newly purchased, I believe. They thought, okay, that's low equity. Again, it was a couple just starting out. They list 4 different vehicles. It's like, whoa. The husband, 2 of them belong to him. A 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee and a 2007 Jeep Patriot Limited. Back then, the wife had the more expensive car, the 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee, worth about $20,000. Monique had a 2008 Toyota RAV4, only worth about $4,000. So I don't know why they had so many cars, if they just love cars, were some of them for off-roading or what, but that happens. Now we get to the point, categorizing separate property claims. So Monique is making sure to say the vehicle, the 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee, she wrote, I paid, so it's worth about $7,000 here, it says. That jewelry, the engagement ring, the wedding ring, I paid $2,500, $3,500. So she's basically saying, look, I paid for those. It's not like he just gave me these rings, a few months ago or years ago or whatever. Look, I paid for those. The mortgage, again, they're talking about the payments, about $1,300 a month, not outlandish. Credit card debt, at least for the husband, because that's what the mortgage debt is under. I don't know if the mortgage was only under his name. That's what some people are wondering about Monique and Spencer. If the house is just listed under Spencer's name, they're going back and forth about what that means, or is her name on there anywhere. Anyway, for this mortgage, it's listed under the husband. The husband is checked, and the monthly payment says like $1,300. The husband's credit card debt is listed at only $3,800. So not much debt, I guess, there. Now, some stuff is checked off as unknown. A lot of stuff is checked off as unknown when it comes to the husband. It does say the address of this Roanoke, Virginia home, worth about $230,000 back then, titled to the husband. The balance of the mortgage is unknown. The equity is listed as unknown. Maybe they figured it out later when we saw that, equity. And we see the wife, her vehicles don't know really the value, and the husbands don't really know the value, one of his vehicles. Now, this is where we get into a lot of unknowns. I don't know if this part Monique filled out, but I get it if you keep your finances separate. Her 5th, 3rd checking and savings account are listed. Wife, over $2,000 in checking, about $1,600 in savings. Now, the husband's, Mike's, back then, listed as Huntington checking and savings, unknown. So she didn't know, which I can understand, what the heck was in his checking and savings account. If you don't share a joint account and you can't just see it right there, who knows? The same with the pensions and retirement plans. Husband, unknown. Any publicly held stocks, bonds, securities, mutual funds? Well, the wife says none, while the husband says unknown. So I don't know if she was filling out this part and just didn't know. So any closely held stocks, other business interest, the wife's is none, the husband's is unknown. So I'm not sure if he didn't fill out that part or he didn't offer that information. As far as life insurance, Monique says none. I only have group life through work, so that makes sense. Estimated only about $35,000 policy. The husband's unknown. So I'm not sure if she filled this out and he wasn't willing to give her that info, or if he provided it later, or what. Now, in terms of furniture and appliances, I saw the wife said none. And then the husband says all kitchen appliances. His are estimated at $5,000. Now, I can understand that if she moved into his home, then she wouldn't necessarily have any furniture and appliances to claim. Or she might be like I was, my first marriage, going through a divorce. I was like, okay, whatever, we bought these Jennifer convertibles, sofas, well, I probably purchased them, or whatever, together. I don't care, just take them. Like, I'm not going to fight you over furniture. I'm not going to fight you over a couch. I don't want a divorce to be delayed over a stupid couch. Safe deposit box, Monique checked none. She has none. Husband, unknown. So that's one thing I did find interesting. There are a lot of unknowns for the husband. This is the prior husband, of course, we're talking about. In terms of transfer of assets, Monique, none. Husband, unknown. Other assets, all assets, other assets, it just says none. Separate property claims, none. Now they're talking about the wife, Monique. She has a car, secured debt through Huntington. She paid about $330 a month. She also had a student loan through Mohila or something like that. It was about nearly $35,000 loan. She also showed her credit card debts through Chase and Citibank. Well, it says about $6,500 and about $4,000. So the total section of debt is about $60,000. So that's including, the student loans and the cars and all that. Did they ever file for bankruptcy? It says none. So it's not like they filed. So we're already almost halfway done, because here now we get to the separation agreement. Parties were married again in Columbus, August 22nd, 2015. No children were born. And it says differences have arisen between the parties and they're now living separate and apart from each other. They want to, separate, claiming again both parties have made full disclosure of their financial situation and their property. I bring that up because there's more entries on their divorce record. This was finalized, back in 2017. So it's like, what are these other entries in 2025? Allegedly, supposedly, they were mistakes or something or whatever. We've heard that in true crime cases. I don't really know what those entries are. I haven't confirmed them myself with the court. Who knows? But it's talking about all the rights after you separate. Right to privacy, their individual residences, whatever. Basically, you guys are separating. Husband and wife are free from interference, authority, control, divide the property up. Now, it does indeed say that that home on Verona Trail is currently titled in the husband's individual name, free and clear of any claim of wife. And it says, Mike represents the mortgage debt is held solely in his name. He shall pay, indemnify, and hold wife harmless on any debts associated with the marital residence. They're talking about their personal properties have been split up and their cars will belong to whomever they belong to. It's kind of easy. I won't say easy, but when you're talking about a marriage that's only, 7 months, you don't necessarily have all this time to blend so many assets together. Free and clear accounts were already separated, no safe deposit box. Now here's the point. It says, wife shall pay, indemnify, and hold husband harmless of the following debts in her name: the Chase credit card, the Citi credit card, student loans, any debts listed in her individual name she has incurred. Makes sense. But it says wife shall pay the sum of that $1,281.59 to husband for reimbursement of miscellaneous debt. What could that be? And if she didn't pay it to him by July 1st, 2018, the interest would accrue, it's weird, from 2 years prior to that deadline at a rate of 23%. So I hope she paid him that back because, that's high percentage. I don't know what it was about, though. So, in essence, student loans aren't his or anything like that, or they're, separate. Everything's separate. No spousal support. It says neither party shall pay spousal support to the other. And the attorney's fees, it says the parties shall each pay their own attorney's fees. The wife is going to pay the filing fee, $206. I remember I paid the filing fee in Illinois for my divorce, but I didn't know about this private judge. There's a private judge fee for $185 the wife is paying to dissolve this marriage, and it'll be paid before the final hearing. So I guess that's kind of cool. Retired judges can still be hired as a private judge just to take care of something like this. Life insurance, they'll retain their own policies free and clear of each other. They will file their own separate tax return for tax years 2016 and forward. No longer filing joint, married. They will seek their own legal counsel. And it says if any part of this agreement is found to be invalid, the rest of the agreement will remain valid and fully enforceable. So again, they're all signing to all this agreement. And this is when they hired the retired, refer this matter over to the retired Judge Donald A. Cox for trial in its entirety. Trial shall be scheduled expeditiously as possible, pursuant to the agreement of the parties. So they're like, let's move forward. And it looks like they didn't stand in each other's way. It looks like, okay, yeah, it wasn't contested. It wasn't this long drawn out thing. Like you hate to see some divorces take so many years. But no, everything's signed off on, agreed upon this new judge. Monique will pay him lickety-split get her done. And this standard mutual temporary restraining order, it's just ordering the same stuff we talked about. Look, don't damage each other's stuff. Don't move money around. Don't, make things look differently than they already are. Don't send anyone to the hospital. It's so much standard stuff. It's mutual. It's for each other. So all the people talking about her restraining order against him, it's just not true. Unless there is some separate restraining order that people can produce and show you legally on the screen and show you where they got it from and it's official. No, I'm just looking at this standard mutual restraining order, signed by the judge electronically and then being referred to a different judge, a private judge. Then there's this checklist for this proceeding without children, the dissolution of this marriage, the fact that they were all served. Again, no children, Monique wasn't pregnant. It just says the parties are incompatible, and as such, the wife is entitled to a divorce. It is therefore ordered, adjudged, and decreed. The marriage contract terminated. It says a decree of divorce is awarded to wife on the grounds of incompatibility. We are just incompatible. Now, what that word really means, who knows what literally happened? Of course, like most divorces, it could be all sorts of drama that went on behind the scenes, but I'm not going to make anything up beyond what Monique said in this court documents. The grounds of incompatibility. Certain states are fault divorces or no fault divorces, and of course people married longer or people really getting into it might hire private eyes and show proof of cheating if that impacts things. Or like a Georgia divorce, they can literally go to trial. Kim Zolciak and Croy, and those drag on for years when there's plenty of assets, a lot of debt, a lot of emotions and all that. This obviously wasn't that. Anything that happened beyond this, when I get more documents, anything outside of civil documents, of course, I will bring that to you, but I can't just make assumptions or make things up out of thin air like I see some people doing just for views or excitement or some are just misled, I get it, but others, like on Facebook, are intentionally besmirching this man's name. I don't know what happened to the Tepes until the police say, this is our suspect or this is who we've arrested. I can't be wild and loose with, oh, look, he walks like their friend, or look, his feet look like someone who Spencer worked with, or, you just can't go there because some people just take it way too far. So it says case style, Monique F. Sabaturski versus Michael D. McKee. The case is terminated. The judge, default, uncontested, dissolution, final appealable order, yes. And I'm looking at all the dates here with this case. I'm looking to see, do I see anything from 2025, that has been added onto this case? And we're on the last page now, and unless I missed it, I don't see anything attributable to 2025. I don't see anything filed in 2025. This all has dates of 2017. All throughout the document, we're through the whole 55 pages. Again, download the rest if you want to see. But I don't see anything attributable to 2025. So some people taking it and running wild with it, there has to be evidence. Some people glance at the court, just the docket, just the description without even requesting the documents. And it's like, oh, maybe Monique reopened it because she wanted this or that, or she never got this or that. And to me, it's not fair. We can't do that. Of course, we can speculate, but we can't make up stuff out of thin air without evidence. That doesn't hold water. Proverbs 11:21. Be sure of this, the wicked will not go unpunished, but those who are righteous will go free. So I think of that in terms of catching whoever did this horrible, horrible crime. They will not go unpunished. They will be found out one way or another, even if it's through a lifetime of suffering and, getting away with it until their last breath. Or if they're arrested tonight as I record this, who knows, they're going to be found out. Let's just keep sticking with whatever the police tell us, whatever the court tells us, whatever we can find that's legitimate, and anything obviously non-factual, like that crazy Facebook story about the Tepe's 4-year-old pointing to the photo of the ex-husband and saying, he did it. That stuff should be reported for false information, because unfortunately, I know people don't have time to dig in and put in these public records requests. They take time, they take energy, they take a lot to go over and everything. But it's worth it, because then I want to put truth out there to the best of my ability. The people who don't have the time, and they just, they're at work and they're like, what's going on with the Tepe case? And then they see this fake report, and some people don't recognize it as fake. And so all this misinformation is spread. A man who is completely innocent, because everyone's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, this innocent man could have his surgeon's career impacted or his livelihood impacted from people reading fake reports. Like, people don't realize the real life implications of this, and people take things too far. Just like Fox News Digital, okay, they did put out what they say was a 911 call made from the Tepe house. They gave the date as April 15th, 2025. They gave the date as last year. At first, I couldn't tell if it was Monique's voice or not, but then I'm glad her brother-in-law and, Spencer's brother-in-law, Rob Misla, I'm glad he's so vocal in the press, immediately correcting these, because it's like, okay, that was some woman at a party at their house. He claims it wasn't even 2025. He says it was years ago. They told him about it. She was freaking out, took an edible or something, and they called police. I like when you nip the untruths in the bud right away, because that helps squash these conspiracy theories. Because people, as soon as they heard that call, it's like, wait a minute, oh no, she got into it with her husband. What was Spencer all about? I like that Rob is nipping things in the bud right away so we can get some factual information out there. That's what I hope this video has done. Again, I will link to my evidence below. And if you can't find a person linking to evidence or actual facts that are explainable and they're running wild with the story, then don't spread the misinformation. Let's just try and spread truth and prayers in Jesus that whoever did this is arrested, that the Tepes are brought to justice. We keep praying for these children who will grow up without their parents, but boy, you think of God being a mother to the motherless and a father to the fatherless. So keep praying for them. In Jesus, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned as I cover this case, many other cases. Take care.